Good morning, Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another episode of Lovin Daily. I'm Julian Bonnici. Joining me today is Jonathan Chiliam. Hope everyone's having a good Monday. We're here to kick off the week with some strong stories. Our first story is all about how hundreds have gathered without masks in beaches and casini around Malta, despite COVID-19 regulations. Our second story is all about a flare-filled marriage proposal in Imjar, which could have damaged protected trees in the environmentally protected area. Our third story is all got to do with election season and Robert Abela saying how his legislature will last until June 2022. Our fourth story is about a tragedy developing in the Mediterranean after 100 migrants were left adrift in Maltese seas after engine failure. And our last story is a very sad story, but all about the family of a late law student releasing his 13 rules for life and other sort of messages from his past. And before we crack on to the stories of today, don't forget to check out Lovin Digest. That's our daily newsletter. You can just go on our website. It's super easy to fill in, and you'll get to keep up on top on all the daily news every day. Make sure to check out all our content on TikTok as well at the moment, and keep up for anything Euro 2020 related going on. John, people gathering without masks.
It was a very, very big weekend. If you didn't realize that summer was here yet, all you had to do was go down to St. George's Bay and look around. So footage, several amounts of footage actually, has emerged of hundreds of people gathered on St. George's Bay, a very popular bay right next to Portugal, the former entertainment hub of Malta, gathered there, obviously, as clubs are still closed and bars are open under restricted hours. So in footage that you can see on loveofmalta.com, hundreds of people are gathered on the beach, many of them maskless, clearly with very little social distancing happening between them, and the people were there until the early hours of the mornings. Now, obviously, this led to many business owners to react online, saying, guys, my business is closed, my club is closed, my bar is opening under restricted hours. It's clearly not working. It is very, very clearly not working what we're trying to do. People are out, people are gathered close by, speaking up to each other's faces without a mask. So they called for authorities to step in, but it wasn't just beaches. Actually, yesterday footage emerged of Casini packed to the brim with very boisterous revelers. Obviously yesterday, or actually this week, is the feast of Saint Philip in Zebuj. And in some footage that we also have on loveofmalta.com, you can see that inside, once you've entered the Casino, clearly it's party time. It's time to celebrate Saint Philip. Unfortunately, once again, people are without masks, on each other's shoulders, hugging, singing, clapping, etc., etc. This seems to be happening more and more, and I think it's only going to happen more and more as we enter summer for real. Let's be clear, yesterday there were 0 new COVID-19 cases on the island, so when it comes to the numbers game, we're doing really, really well, but clearly people are tired and they want to get out there again.
Yeah, no, it's really no surprise, right, that things like this are happening, particularly when you sort of start receiving mixed signals, right, from a government, So in one breath, we have the lowest number of cases, we're doing the best in Europe, we have the best vaccination campaign worldwide. And then on the other hand, we're still under some really strict restrictions where places like the UK, France, Italy, are completely at least different, opening up events, that frustration starts to build, and it is summer and people actually, want to start going out a little bit. To defend police just a little bit, I was in Slema on Saturday night and I actually saw quite a lot of police down by Exiles, which was a hot spot recently. I saw them with some dogs, so doing some work. But there may be a question about resources and how many police do we need to actually effectively enforce COVID-19 regulations. I mean, I know it's a bit off topic, right? But just this morning, Lovin Malta published yet another video of a beating in Bujiba, and somehow no police to be found as well. So maybe questions have to be asked about, how many police we have on the streets and what we can do to make sure, everybody's at least safer and certain rules can be enforced. On to our next story, speaking a little bit about enforcement actually. A man's over-the-top marriage proposal, which included flames and massive banners in the environmentally protected area of Ain Tufiha, set social media aflame, right? So there was a video and some footage yesterday shared of some guy proposing to his, let's say, hopefully fiancée, we don't actually know what happened, at Riviera Martinique in Ain Tuffiha with a huge banner, will you marry, and all of his friends holding flares over the air. Now, some thought it was sweet, right? A really nice proposal, really grand, whatever. But not everyone felt that way, particularly Cammy Applegren, who's an environmentalist, but also a ranger in the Maestral Park right next door. And she raised concerns, right, that hill is an environmentally protected zone with environmentally protected trees, shrubs, and whatever. And actually, the proposal did leave its effect, right? Cammy Applegren uploaded photos showing charred trees, charred bushes, really quite a shocking incident. We'll see what's going to happen. Cammy Applegren has actually reported the incident to the police, so this fiancé might actually end up with a hefty fine before he has to deal with paying for an entire wedding, and we'll just see what's going to happen. On the actual proposal itself, now, I don't know about you, John, right, but it really just reminded me of all these stupid gender reveals happening in America, right, where people just set up explosions just to tell everybody, they have a girl or a boy. And I just can't understand people's obsession with this grand, obscene, and let's face it, kind of tacky gestures. Simplicity is key, and it's beautiful. Maybe people can take note on that.
The only question I have is, did she say yes? I'm dying to know what the bride-to-be, how she reacted, what she's thinking, To have your marriage proposal all over social media is one thing. To have your marriage proposal that's possibly criminal all over social media is another thing entirely. So just on the trees themselves, they were tamarisk trees, which is a protected tree in Malta, and it was in a protected zone as well. So doubly bad. And as you pointed out, a report has been filed. So yeah, this guy, this potential groom might very well face a fine, maybe jail time ahead of his potential marriage. So we'll definitely have to see how this story develops. Moving on to the next story, Malta's Prime Minister has hinted a little bit at the time frame that he might be looking at when it comes to the next general election. So yesterday, during a radio interview ahead of the Labour Party's marathon, Robert Abela was speaking a little bit about how proud he is of the new candidates that he's seeing, how there's a lot of young blood and young talent. And then he made a pretty interesting comment where he said, quote, "The reality is this legislature will last until next June, but we need to start thinking about the next 5 or 10 years. And then he went on to talk about the candidates. Now, obviously, this comment comes as many people are wondering, when is the next general election? Will it be in September? Will it be in November? Will it be all the way in next June? I thought this comment was quite interesting, Joe.
Yes, no, really interesting. At least first indication of when an election is going to happen. So over the last few months, the rumor mill has been in overdrive, with everyone insisting it's going to happen in October 2021. Even my grandmother, who hasn't left her care home in a year and a half because of COVID-19, knew it was going to happen in October 2021. So that just made me, entirely dismiss the idea already. This is the biggest indication of when it could happen, June 2022. However, it should be noted that Robert Abela has actually always said, right, that he was going to make this government last the full legislature. Remember, no Labour Party government since Joseph Muscat has taken over has lasted the full 5-year tenure. So this would be actually quite a milestone for Robert Abela, and his administration. However, let's be real, right? Just drive along the streets and you're just seeing billboards everywhere of government. I think there's even a Nationalist Party billboard, candidates calling up everyone from both sides of the divide. He might say it's happening in a year's time, but I don't know, it's starting to feel a little bit like it's just around the corner. On to our next story. It's all about a tragedy developing in the Mediterranean, with around 100 people currently caught adrift in Malta's search and rescue zone. This has been raised by NGO Alarm Form, who have raised concerns, that this migrant vessel has a total engine failure, is running out on food and water, and several lives are, at risk. And what could be yet another, mass death just outside our shores. Now, unfortunately, Lovin Malta's questions to the Home Affairs Ministry remain unanswered. That the ministry who sort of looks after this field and what to do. And this is happening once again ahead of the summer season, right? We all know it very well now what summers in the Mediterranean look like nowadays. There's usually a lot of crossings. And unfortunately, in the last 2 to 3 years, any sort of sense of diplomacy and collaboration in the Mediterranean has sort of gone down the drain, right? When we're all just leaving people float around, hoping somebody might take them. This really isn't a solution. I know the ministers actually, very progressive, actually very works very hard, So I think this is the last thing we need to do to actually, at least find a long-term workable solution.
No, it's genuinely inhumane to leave people out there, 100 people no less, with no food, no water, and a dead engine, literally adrift in the Mediterranean. So it's shocking. And the thing is this, Alarm Phone said they're not the only boat out there in the Med this weekend. They believed up to 2,000 people were making the crossing from Africa or the Middle East to Europe over the last 2 days alone. Malta remains on the forefront of this migration crisis. As Julian's rightly pointed out, it's really time that someone steps up, some different governments of different countries step up, get together, sit around the table and really hash this out, because until they do, more and more people will just be left in the graveyard that is the Mediterranean. Moving on to the final story, a bit of a both touching and heartbreaking story. Obviously, 2 months ago there was a tragic death of Julian Spiteri, a 19-year-old law student, and this weekend his parents took to social media to share 2 handwritten notes by the youth that he had written when he was still alive. One of them was his 13 rules for life, and the other one was his 16 points of inspiration, and really, they're really worth a read. Now, this guy was only 19, obviously, so still a youth, but his writing showed us how intelligent he was for his age. And, some of his rules for life include simple things as read books, set challenging but realistic goals, but also go to things such as it's okay to seek pleasure. Really, really worth a read. And as far as the parents were concerned, they opened up a little bit about why they wanted to share these rules, saying, quote, Julian wrote these 3 years ago. This is around the same time that he wrote his bucket list. But for us, it seems like these are a list of instructions he left for us on how to survive without him. So, you can read all of these rules and points for inspiration on lovinmalta.com. Maybe they'll give you a bit of a new outlook for this week.
Yeah, no, really, really touching stuff, and actually, quite inspirational. It's a helpful reminder, that sometimes life can be really short, and it's really important, to take it as it's come, and follow, actually these rules of Julian are actually, really helpful, actually a good guide for anyone to follow, whether you're a young guy or an older person, just have a read of it, keep his memory going, I suppose, It was a really nice and touching message. Just on that note, I guess, have a day full of loving, and see you tomorrow.